Hello, one and all, and welcome to the podcast we call the Fantastival with myself, Steve Nussbaum. In the podcast, I invite my guests to come on and talk to me all about their musical taste, their memories, their experiences, and they get to collate their fantasy festivals, which I have christened Fantastivals. Now, this is a pre-recorded intro. I don't normally do these. When the episode you're about to hear was recorded, in my head, this was episode 163. Later on in the week, which I plan to take off due to the bank holiday, I made contact with Kahir O'Doherty, and he turned out to be my guest in episode 163, which was not planned and just happened really quickly. So I put that one out in the week. It's done really well. I had a great time talking to Mr. O'Doherty. Love his band, love what he'd done. His fantasy festival was amazing. So if you haven't listened to that, please go back and take a listen. So like I said, that was 163, although the episode you're about to hear was always touted to be 163. And this episode was all around coinciding with a very important week that's about to come up, Mental Health Awareness Week. And I guess the one and only Mark McGowan, who you might know better as someone who does so much online, whether it's blogging, social commentating, a social critic, whether it's under the guise of the artist taxi driver. Mark is a huge presence on social media. He's got lots to say about mental health. So I wanted to coincide having him on the pod with Mental Health Awareness Week, which is what we're doing this week. So I hope you enjoy it. Mark is a really interesting fellow, really easy to talk to, and I found him fascinating to listen to, and I hope you do as well. So without any further ado, this is episode 164 of the Fantastival Podcast with Mr. Mark McGowan.
How are we doing, Stephen?
All good. Lovely to have you on the podcast, Mark. I'm so happy to have you on. I think we're going to have a great chat about all things music and about what you've got going on. But as always, I always like to check in with my guests, make sure they're okay from a mental health perspective. I think it's very relevant this week as we head into Mental Health Awareness Week. So, Mark, how are you, mate?
I'm okay. I did have I had therapy this morning, 10 to 11. I wasn't very good last year. Ended up in the Bromley Drug and Alcohol Unit again. So I was there till September, still drinking, still using drugs, and then stopped in September. So I've been okay since last September. I've been in lots of groups and lots of different. It's good. It's a really good. They really helped me. They saved my life again. So that's good. So I'm on the tail end of it now. I think I've got about 6 sessions. So I did 3 sets of groups, which was different things that they help you with. But in the beginning, when I went to so it's not a priory or anything like that. It's like a walk-in. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah.
Real sort of hardcore, street alcoholics. It's like a field hospital in a war zone. There's bandaged heads, tagged ankles, people drinking hand sanitizer. It's really hardcore. And I was still going there every day, still drinking from the morning. So it was good to get in there and just sort of just get some perspective about things. I wasn't feeling good, almost suicidal. So it's good turning all that around and getting back into sort of, some more. It's nice the sun's out today. First time it's been out. But it feels like it's been a really dark time for a long time, actually. Yeah.
All right,
I feel good now.
Well, that's good to hear. I mean, one day at a time, right? You can only take every day as it comes. And some days you'll be up, other days you'll be down, and it's just a case of seeing how you feel. And
I just put my addictions into making art. So I just turn it around. So I don't really have an art practice. It's just another addiction. But it's I just can't stop making work. And then I wake up, start doing a video, and then start painting. So we're setting up a show at the Bethlem as well. It was amazing today. So it's our first day installing the show. So it's nice to throw myself into that. Yeah, so we set up a thing called Live Lounge. So it's a show. They asked me to do a show. So what I thought I'd do would be to offer a screen, a frame for people to come and make music, play music. We record spoken word, performance, dancing. So the idea is just a different type of art exhibition. It's an art exhibition with nothing in it. Well, there is things in it, but we just made a room for people to come. So the art is going to be the people who come and perform and make stuff and that. We were setting up today. Look, I put a picture on my iPad. That's what it looks like so far.
It's great.
You see that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
big, massive double bass. So we got synthesizers in there. We just started. We got loads of backdrops. So basically, rugs, sofas, tea, biscuits, synthesizers, accordions, double bass, pianos. We got massive speakers. We got I don't know how many speakers we got, but we got a lot. 5 really big ones, and then one's going on top. So we're going to hook that up. So we're going to, on the opening night, we're going to have people performing lots of service. So let me say, it's in the Bethlem, which people may know through the word Bedlam. So it's in the Bethlem Mental Hospital. It's the world's oldest mental hospital. It's nearly 800 years old, still functioning. It's got the National Unit of Psychosis, mothers and baby. It's got food disorders. It's got everybody that they go there. It's enormous. It's in 200 acres. And in the middle, they got the Museum of the Mind, and downstairs the gallery. And the gallery looks after people from the Bethlem community. So, patients, service users, people who consider themselves artists first. So we're the Bethlem artist community. And lots of them are going to be performing on the opening night. And then we've got loads of workshops, film club. We've got Martin Ware coming from Heaven 17, Human League. He's coming to do a workshop. We got we had Nathan Saudi from the Fat White Family and Warren from Meat Raffle. So we've been doing workshops already leading up to it. We've made an album as well. So I went and recorded I think it's 22 different people from the Bethlem community. And then with a guy called Gowan Hewitt. Gowan is he just won a Brit as well as a trailblazer. And so loaded all the voices onto laptops. And then he played this soundscape. We recorded it live. So it was done in one take. So it's a double A-side album. One side is called Melancholy and the other side is called Madness. So representative in the two mental states, but also in tempo as well. So yeah, we tried to make it like that. That should be out soon. I heard from the guy the other day, it should be here in middle of May. So we're just waiting for that. I'm not going to say anything until I've got it in my hand. You know what it's like. It might turn up, might not turn up. You don't want to say. I don't even want to say a date. Do you know what I mean? Because they make albums for massive mega stars, and they just take up all the factory space for printing vinyl. So I'm just waiting, fingers crossed, hoping it's going to come soon in the next little while.
Wow, sounds really exciting. So I guess you've already mentioned the exhibition. So by the time this goes out, the exhibition's already started. So Mark, how long does the exhibition run for? So you've obviously mentioned it's at the Bethlem, which is in South London. So if anyone's listening to this, how long have they got to see the exhibition? When does the exhibition close?
It closes on 13th of July, so it's on for across 3 months. So there's things happening every day there. It's not open Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. It's Wednesday to Saturday. It's open from 9:30 till 5. But, there's going to be things. Come down. But the thing is come down and make some music. That's what we want. We want people to come down and make music. We want people to come down, jam, hang out, do workshops, make music, perform, dance, spoken words. It's going to be amazing, honestly, because any attempt, Alan Bajur, who's event theorist, he says any attempt to preempt an event is foolish. You don't know what's going to happen. What you got to do is you got to create the screen, you got to create the frame, and people will come. Do you know what I mean? And it'll be incredible. So we made one album, and hopefully we sell the album. We're getting 500 copies made. We're going to give 100 copies away to people involved in the project. That leaves us with 400. So we sell those for 20 quid. We get enough money to make another album. Just doing the album covers and things like that, it's been so exciting. But to have it on vinyl and put it on a record player and hear it, it's amazing.
Yeah, really cool. It's really cool. I mentioned you at the start as a man of many talents, and it wasn't until I was researching and I looked at your Wikipedia. So your Wikipedia says a lot about you. I don't know if you know what your Wikipedia says. Known internationally for his performance art, including shock art, street art, installation art, and as a stuntman, internet personality, video blogger, social commentator, social critic, satirist, political activist, peace activist, and an anti-establishment, anti-war, anti-capitalist, anti-monarchist, and anti-power elite protester. That is some Wikipedia write-up you've got there, Mark.
Yeah,
I guess. I guess where did you find the time? I mean, how did this all come about?
Well, I was in the Bethlem. I was in the mental hospital, and then I was basically a heroin addict. I'd been through football hooliganism with Millwall, and then went to Ibiza, but we was already on taking ecstasy. This is like the 80s, about 85, 86, with the massive sort of surge in ecstasy and things like that, but ended up on heroin. So I ended up in the Bethlem and at the Maudsley, and then, I was there and I was making art, ended up in going to a rehab and making art. I was in an exhibition at the Bethlem. This is back in 1997. And then I went straight from the mental hospital to uni. So I went straight to Camberwell, did a foundation course, did a painting degree, went to Goldsmiths and did it's art history, but it's called visual culture. I'm looking at lots of philosophy and art and things. Ended up teaching at Chelsea. So I was at Chelsea for about 6 years teaching on the MA Fine Art. But I started doing street performance. So I push a peanut along the road with my nose for 7 miles. I crawled from London Bridge to Canterbury with 28 boxes tied around my wrists and ankles, rows between my teeth, and a big sign on my back say, "Could you love me?" So I did about 100, maybe over 100 of these street performances, which were interventions into the media. So I was critiquing the media. So even though I've done all of these things, there's a common theme through my work, which has always been critiquing the media, newspapers, television, the internet, and also critiquing the art world as well. So quite often looking at how performance art is the way that people use that frame of someone does something mad and they say, "Oh, is that performance art?" And performance art is a little bit like the lava lamp of the art world. It's a little bit of a novelty. Can you come and do this? Can you come and, do a turn, or there's a closing of the exhibition. Can you come and do a performance? So I took it I did critique the art world for a long time, still kind of critiquing the art world, looking at what is art and I do these, I moved on from that. I started doing taxi driver videos, got this character called the Artist Taxi Driver, who's a bit of a ranter and raver, but taxi driver's nearly 15 years old. So pre what everyone else is doing these days. I mean, internet's full up, there's 100,000 there's 100 million Chunky Marks, there's 100 million artist taxi drivers, but back in the day, it was I'm sure I was in the first sort of first ones. I got the original YouTube channel, so I changed from normal media into internet. 2007, I got the year that YouTube started, I got a YouTube channel. But it's also, they're just like paintbrushes, that's just another medium. So the same way I used to do these pieces, pushing a monkey nut. I used to go on the telly, I used to go in the newspapers and then reclaim those pieces as my own work. So the newspaper article I'd show in galleries, the video from the news I'd show in galleries. So it's just another medium, it's just like paintbrushes or canvas or sculpture. But it's it's progressive as well. Like everyone's sort of art career, you can see how things progress throughout when people have been around a little bit. People are dead. You can look back and you can see how they started and follow their line of progression and know how things change and what. So there has been a lot of politics as well, lots of stuff about politics, especially since 2010, but pre that as well. I mean, I was doing things about Tony Blair back in 2003, 2007, when the election day came. We got an election in London, so it's kicking off at the moment. Yeah, there's a Tory and a Labour going. Susan Hall, who's terrible. and then like Sadiq Khan, who's like not my cup of tea, but I'd rather like really don't want the Tories in. But yeah, so I'll go on and look at the media and talk about like different politics things, what's going on in the world, and it's tough stuff, you know, looking at the media every day. It's not fucking easy. It's really hard work.
Yeah.
You know, that's why I was saying it's been so depressing. The world seems fucked at the moment. You know, the whole thing seems really down. That's why it's nice to get a bit of sun back here. It's just so gloomy, you know, and it's almost like they just want to keep you there. They want to, that's how they want it all the time. It's this kind of like disaster capitalism. There's always an issue, you know, whether it's the banking crisis, whether it's the Iraq war, whether it's Brexit, whether it's COVID, continual crisis. But it affects everybody, you know, like in a really bad way as well. You know, it's not good for people. It's not healthy. You know, we've got everything. You think what we've got, what we could have. We have the love, the money, the knowledge, the understanding to live in a kind of paradise. But we end up kicking each other's heads in. Do you know what I mean? That's how they want it. That's how they want you. And with all that internet stuff, they do. They want you isolated and alone. Do you know what I mean? I mean, we're on Zoom here. Like, you wouldn't do Zoom like 10, 15 years ago. It didn't even exist. They want you alone and isolated. They don't want you on the streets, that's for sure. They don't want you congregating. They've been shutting things for years. You know, they've been shutting things down. Things like squatting. People used to, like, want to live in, you know, been doing it for centuries, trying to, like, live outside of the system or live in an alternative system. But, you know, they don't want people to do that. They don't want people living, you know, outside of this kind of like system. That's why they didn't want squats and why they shut down sort of like refugee camps in France, you know. It's because they don't want people to like build alternative sort of like universities or like food places. That's why, what was that thing that they did years ago at St. Paul's, you know, where they was like started living outside? They shut all that down. They're going to smash it up. Same thing what they're doing in America with like, or across Europe with any kind of like student solidarity with Gaza. Like, they just go and smash it up. You know, they don't want people, you know, outside of the system. It scares them. Well, they just don't want it because, you know, they want people in debt. They want people isolated, alone. People are easier to control that way.
Well, we control ourselves on this podcast, and I get you to talk all about music. So let's brighten it up again. So if anyone isn't feeling great, hopefully this makes them feel better. So Mark, let me take you back. It's clearly obvious that you're passionate about music through looking through your social accounts and through listening to you talk before about the exhibition and the music element of it. So let me take you back then. What were your earliest musical memories?
Oh, what, like as a child?
Yeah, as a child, yeah.
Yeah, I was brought up in Irish Catholic community. So we sung, you know, my parents would have people around the house. People, like, everyone had songs. We all sang songs in a circle. You know, you'd come back after, like, the social club and they'd be, like, there till 2, 3, 4 in the morning, drinking in my parents' house. My parents were very social people. And everyone sung. You know, Irish people, they just, you know, people brought their guitars or fiddles or accordions. My mum played the accordion, played the harmonica. You know, people sung. It was just, my earliest memories are like my parents singing or my dad singing, you know, with people around, people listening. And yeah, I suppose that, and like Top of the Pops and all that stuff as you're growing up and going to like the social club and discos on a Friday when you're 10 or 11. So like all that back in the day was Bay City Rollers, Grease was out. So it was all sort of 1970s music, which was like, you look back. I mean, things turned, didn't they? They went punk and then there was soul. Music's very tribal, isn't it? People, you had to pick sides and everyone had to pick a side. You had to pick what music you like was what clothes you wore and things like that. So I think I was part of like a little bit of a soul thing as well. And then just got into sort of like, you know, I was out in Ibiza. I was in Amnesia. I was working in Amnesia. I was like, Alfredo was DJing. He was like, you know, I ended up being his manager. We were just hanging out. There was me, Alfredo, Adamski, and Ricky from KLF, who was like the rapper from KLF. But that was our little troupe as well. But yeah, Adamski had just started. Do you know Adamski?
Yeah. He done the single, didn't he? That went to #1, Killer.
Yeah, Killer. He had a few. He's out in Vienna at the moment. He's going to come to the Bethlem Live Lounge as well. But we were like listening to Balearic Beat and things like that. Then I ended up with all the sort of like psy trance. Ended up out in Bali in Australia, and everything was like really hard. Not really hard, but do you know psy trance? So it was like going fast beats and like everyone on acid, everyone on drugs. Do you know what I mean? We took their side trance and went, what are they called? Spiral Tribe. Yeah, my friend, they were making clothes. We went to Glastonbury. I was the cook. We had this really big sort of like shop thing there where it was a tent really, but massive, and selling lots of clothes and making music. And it was all on DAT tapes. And I was speaking to my friend earlier to try and get his DAT machine and all the old tapes. And then people like, I can't wait to hear those. I'd love to get that music back. But yeah, I grew up with all people like Danny Rampling, Paul Oakenfold, who all then went to Futures and Zooms, Tunes and all that. And went to Kinky Galinkies, which is like the biggest trans club. And all the clubs, just went to clubs every night. Philip Salons, Stallions, loved gay clubs, loved trans clubs. Out in Ibiza, loved all the trans and all the sort of like Euro trash music, and loved all that. That was amazing. And they were the best clubs as well, best music. But yeah, I got into sort of like, when I was coming off heroin and things, and I remember trying to like fucking sort myself out, just used to have headphones on with really heavy techno, trying to like just like confuse my head. Yeah, I mean, I can make music now. It's so easy. I've got sample app. I've got like 3 synthesizers. I can make music. I can change, distort voices. I can make a track really, really easily. Been hanging about with Warren from Meat Raffle. I don't know if you know Meat Raffle, but they're like, and Scud FM. They're all part of sort of like South London indie scene. Have you ever heard of the Windmill in Brixton?
Yeah, I heard of the Windmill, yeah.
So that's like this really sort of like indie venue. And I was down there the other week and I got called up on stage and did a spoken word thing, and Warren just put on like a sample machine. But that's where, do you know the Fat White Family?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've been out hanging around with Nathan. Nathan came into the hospital and done a workshop with lots of the patient service users. It was really good. He's a really sensitive soul, Nathan. It's incredible. And then like this weekend, went down to a record shop in Camberwell, Dash the Henge. Have you ever heard of that?
I haven't heard of that. No, I used to go to a place called Red Star in Camberwell. Do you remember Red Star?
Yeah, I know Red Star.
I remember the Red Star.
So that's Old Arbor Lane.
Yeah.
But that record shop, have a look at Dash the Henge on Instagram. They got different bands on there every single night. Saturday, I went down there, and Lias, who's like the lead singer of Fat White Family, he's Nathan's brother. He did a 2-hour set last night on the BBC 6 Sounds like live lounge at 9 o'clock, Lias. But on Saturday, listen to this, right? So I go down to the record shop, and then it's not big in there, do you know what I mean? Probably as big as the room you're in, but maybe a bit bigger. About 40 people in there, packed it was, this little record shop, and they was at the end. And Lias has made this video with a guy called Niall Trask, who's like, he makes all the Fat White Family videos. He's a top video filmmaker. Anyway, it's very sort of like shot and it's shot in, he was supposed to have Lias's vocals on it, like telling a story, but it didn't quite work. So Lias sat on a chair and did it live. And he had the films being screened, no sound, Lias narrating. They had a saxophone, bass, one of those drummers with brushes, when and it was like fucking unbelievable. It was so good. It was about 10 minutes long. It was packed in there. I was right at the front. They're making a film about the Windmill, so there was big like camera crew getting in my way. But I was down like just standing at the front. It was only 3 people. You get free. It was free. The width of the place is only about 3-4 people. That's how small it is. But they kind of finished. And then they went, let's go and have a fag. So they went out. Then they started doing a Q&A with Lias, Warren from Meat Raffle. Have you ever heard of Pre-Goblin?
No.
They're really good as well. guy called Alex Sorby, but I didn't even know. I've only just started listening to them. Anyway, so they come back, they're doing a Q&A, and the Q&A kind of breaks up. Now there's only just a couple of people like milling around and that. And Lias, who's like, I mean, they're big band, they're playing Glastonbury, do you know what I mean? The Fat White Families, I don't know what they play, what their biggest audience is, but tens of thousands, maybe 50,000. So he's there on his own with the jazz band, and he just started this kind of singing, but in a very high falsetto. But it was really extraordinary. And it was like, he went on for about 10 minutes, and he was just like pointing it. I was just going, what the fuck is this? You know, it was really extraordinary, really, really quite emotional, quite like, I felt like, wow, this is a real moment. And it ended, Lias said to like, just bring it down. And they kind of brung it down, and Lias got up to walk off. No one clapped because there was barely anyone there. Some old woman, she shouts out, "Oh, fucking hell's matter with you lot? No one's clapping." You know, you can just hear that on the video. And then it was like, he went off for a fag, come back about 5 minutes later and started again and did about another 10 minutes. But it was one of those moments where I thought to myself, oh my God, this is fucking important. This is a really special moment. There's barely anyone, do you know what I mean, witnessing this. Unbelievable, really, really unbelievable. Kind of like when you think this is really underground, but, you know, beyond the underground. It's just like, yeah, he's got a really strange presence. So he's kind of the architect of all that Fat White Family and all their subsidiary bands. And he's a very, you can tell he's a very strong figure, almost kind of like Mick Jagger-like. He has like, I got an album of him. He wrote to the Art Taxi Driver. He drew a big picture of himself with a black Sharpie, and he's got a massive nose because he's one of those people that's very like his facial features are very pronounced. You know, he has this real kind of like almost Roman look. Looks like a fucking like from 2,000 years ago. I think his family is like they're Algerian, born in Scotland, brought up in Northern Ireland, spent the last 20 years in Peckham. But very, you know, culturally, they're like so fucking, Northern Ireland must have been. He said it was really tough for them. My family's from Northern Ireland, from Tyrone, and they was in Tyrone as well. But what an extraordinary thing on the weekend.
Yeah.
I was like,
all those cultures coming together to.
Yeah, but I felt like when he was singing that kind of, you know, and then I start to think, well, you know, I can make music, you know, because I get inspired by people. And I think we had Julie Verhoeven, who's this, like, she came to, like, she's this artist, but also makes clothes. She works in fashion and that, but she's an artist first. Went to work for John Galliano at 18, didn't even go uni. She works in St. Martin's, but she's amazing as well. And I felt inspired when she came and done the workshop at Bethlem. I got her to come, and she was amazing. And you start to think, like, you don't need a fucking sewing machine. Do you know what I mean? Use gaffer tape, use some safety pins. And with Lias on the weekend, I felt that same kind of energy. Do you know what I mean? You don't need anything. You know, you can just make this yourself and just go for it. You know, just use your voice, use your, you know, everything that you've got to go and make something that's really incredible. You know, obviously there's high production, like, you know, studios and engineers. And the studio and the engineers probably make most of it. But when you get something raw like that, something live like that, you can't make that in a studio. And there's a completely different sound. There's a complete different emotion. You know, witnessing and listening to something live is extraordinary. You go and record that and listen to it back, and you probably think it sounds shit.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like standing on a massive mountain and looking around you and seeing like spectacular views, and then taking a picture and trying to show your mate the picture.
Yeah. It's not the same,
a few weeks later, it looks shit. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't look nothing. It's two-dimensional. You're standing there with that wind, with a 360. You know, you can't. You just, you know, with that oxygen. Do you know what I mean? You're showing someone a picture like on a phone or like someone's looking at it. You can't recreate that live moment. You can't do that. And I think it's the same with music. And, you know, the more you witness people, that's why we stop at buskers. You know, that's why you stop and listening to people making raw stuff. You know, it's completely different. Yeah, with your headphones on, walking around, you do have like out of body experiences. You know, the visuals in front of you, it makes you feel a bit funny. But witnessing live music and personal, you know, sometimes not in massive stadiums where the person in front of you is like a dot.
You mentioned Glastonbury a couple of times. Are you a big fan of festivals then, Mark? Have you been to many? You also mentioned Glasgow.
Yeah, I've been. I'd tell you, like, the one festival that I've been like the most, I think I've been about 4 or 5 times, is the Green Gathering. So it's like just over the border in Wales, and it's like there's a lot of debate and a lot of talking there, but lots of music. But it's all centered around kind of like climate change. There's like, you know, it's a few thousand people. It's not a massive festival, but it's so nice there. Everyone's like, you know, really chilled, and there's lots of space. There's teepees. Glastonbury, for me, like when I went Glastonbury, I think I was there for like 8-10 days. I was there before because we were kind of working there, but not really. I think I was tripping every day. But yeah, Glastonbury, you know, you do have amazing moments. And like, when did I last go Glastonbury? I saw The Cure, Simple Minds, Oasis was there, their shit. The Jazz Field. So our tent our sort of like shop thing was pitched in the Jazz Field. I think they had Portishead, Massive Attack. That was really good. But the best things is just going into a tent with loads of balloons randomly, and there's someone playing like the violin and playing techno, two-piece band. You know, the best things you can do at Glastonbury is go around the edges.
Yeah, I've heard that the sheer scale of Glasgow is what it's all about. So in this very podcast, Mark, you get to collate your own fantasy festival. So for any first-time listeners, our guests get to collate their fantasy festival. They get to choose any 5 acts, one of whom must play one of their studio albums in full, and they also get to play an encore, which can be any song that all 5 acts can perform together to end the fantasy festival. So very simple, 5 acts take 5 time slots. I mentioned PG Charletta at the beginning, so in the last episode, he created his PG Fest Fantasy Festival. He had Swim School as his opening act. He had Lewis Dunford as his Super Seconds. He had the Snuts for his Midway Madness. He had the Stone Roses as his pre-headliners. And Mark's already mentioned his dislike of this band. He had Oasis as his headliner, playing Definitely Maybe. And for his encore, he had all 5 play I Want to Be Adored. So very, very simple. So Mark, you get to collate your own fantasy festival. But before we talk about your favourite acts and the acts we're going to play, you need to give your fantasy festival a name, and you need to give it a venue. So what are you going to call your fantasy festival?
What am I going to call it?
Yeah.
Oh, I was supposed to have thought about this. What can I call it?
What's your art exhibition called?
Melancholy and Madness. Let's call it Melancholy and Madness.
All right. So we can hold this anywhere in the world, Mark. We can hold it somewhere massive. We can hold it somewhere tiny. So where are we going to hold Melancholy and Madness? Where do you want to hold it?
At the Bethlem Mental Hospital.
Yes. All right. Let's do it. All right. So we hold it at the Bethlem Mental Hospital. Before we talk about your 5 acts, any acts who you want to shout out, who you love, but just aren't going to get into your fantasy festival?
No, let's just do the ones that are going to get in, and then I can work out.
All right. So it's 2:00, Bethlem Mental Hospital. Time for your opening act then, Mark. Who are you going to have then open your fantasy festival and play for an hour for us from 2 till 3?
Nina Simone. Are you allowed dead people?
Whoever you want. Your fantasy, alive, dead.
So let's open with Nina Simone.
Okay, so why are you going to open with Nina Simone? Because what does Nina Simone mean to you? And I guess why would you have her over anyone in the world to open?
She's just the best. I think Nina Simone's absolutely off the clock. Extraordinary. When she went off, like, if you've seen that documentary, what's happening, Miss Simone? When she goes off, when she was going on about David Bowie, when she was dancing, when she got lost, she was bipolar. When she got lost in her music, she was classically trained, extraordinary pianist, like the best pianist. And she went and played in a live lounge then. She did Goddamn Mississippi, which after like the church was firebombed. It was like a terrorist attack, and they wouldn't play it. They wouldn't play it on the radio because she used the word goddamn, and it was like all sort of like South Christian, all that shit.
All
yeah,
right.
Nina Simone's extraordinary.
All right, she's going to be your opening act. So we've got Nina Simone. This is the fourth time she's been chosen for Fantasy Festival, so she's back for a fourth appearance. Going to play from 2 till 3. We'll take a half-hour break at 3 o'clock. That'll take us to 3:30. Then, Mark, you get to pick your next act, your Super Seconds act. We're going to play from us to 3:30 to 4:30. So, Mark, who's going to be your Super Seconds act?
We have Lee Scratch Perry. Can we have Lee Scratch Perry?
Yeah. You can completely have whoever you like. So, Lee Scratch Perry. Why?
Has he ever been in it before?
Lee Scratch Perry has never been selected for a fantasy festival, so he's joining us for the first time. So why Lee Scratch Perry then? Why is he making your line?
Yeah, I met him at Notting Hill Carnival, but also like I know Adrian Sherwood and that, and my friend Pete Harris, he does all Lee Scratch Perry album covers. But Lee Scratch Perry, Arcology, he's unbelievable. He's like, has he never been picked for a festival? The guy is incredible. He's like the number one producer of reggae music all time. Yeah, I remember when we were young, we was like when Jules in Jamaica, and Lee Scratch Perry was outside of his house, and he said to Jules Holland, "There's like, because he paints, he makes art as well, you know, Lee Scratch Perry, and he had a toaster like stuck on the railings, these big railings outside his house. He said, that's because I'm a toaster and not a boaster." Yeah, Lee Scratch Perry is extraordinary. And Arcology, spelled Arkollogy, is a top album.
All right, so maybe we get Lee Scratch Perry to play that album then. So we need an album. Maybe Lee Scratch Perry can play that album in full for you at your fantasy festival.
No, another album I want.
All right, okay. Access denied. Arcology out the window. He'll play some tracks from it, but not all of them. All right, so Lee Scratch Perry, first appearance. He's going to play till 4:30. We'll take another half-hour break. Then it'll be time for Midway Madness. So Mark, got 2 acts down. We've got 3 acts left to go. Who's going to play in your Midway Madness slot?
Midway Madness.
Yeah, so in the middle of your festival. It can be as mad or as unmad as what you like.
James Brown.
All right, James Brown. All right, tell us why James Brown.
James Brown, has he ever been on?
Yeah, James Brown's been picked a few times. James Brown makes his 6th appearance now you've picked him. So James Brown has literally been everything from a... I saw James Brown in Ibiza. He's like, the guy didn't fuck around. He was like doing concerts for like 3-4 hours. He was hard to get off. Yeah. I bet that must have been some experience watching him in Ibiza though.
Yeah, there was loads. Yeah, so basically, I think it was the Olympics in 1992, and prior to that, they used to have this festival at the Coup Club, and they just used to have all sorts there. Oh, I saw Freddie Mercury at Montserrat Cabaret singing Barcelona there. Wow. That was incredible. Yeah, but James Brown, he goes off, mate. If you like, when you said madness, that's what I was thinking. He goes absolutely crackers, isn't he? His music is wild as well.
Yeah, great.
You're going to forget loads of people, aren't I?
Possibly, but I guess that's the beauty of doing the podcast. So James Brown, yeah, absolutely great artist. He's going to play Midway Madness. He's going to play an hour. We're going to have problems, Mark, getting him off the stage because I think at an hour... I don't know how that's going to quite work out, but we'll eventually get him off. We'll take one more half-hour break. That takes to 6:30, so we've got 2 acts left. So this time you've got a pre-headline act who get to give us an hour and a half to play from 6:30 to 8 o'clock. So, Mark, who's going to be your pre-headline act then?
What's this? Is this the one before the big one?
Yeah, the one before the big one.
Well, because it's a fantasy, I'm changing the rules a bit. So I'm going to have it's going to be like a once-in-a-lifetime collab. So it's going to be Lou Reed and the Velvet Underground and the Doors on stage at the same time, with Lou Reed and Jim Morrison singing, he's singing The End and he's singing Heroin.
All right, so I guess why are those two for you then? I guess they probably both mean quite a lot to you.
Yeah, because that's like when you listen to music's about drugs, that's like what it is. This is The End. Yeah, I love that track, especially like the really long kind of live version that's like 17 minutes long or even longer. And Lou Reed and the Velvet Underground, Heroin, is just like both those two tracks. They just remind me of my darkest day. So also like melancholic, do you know what I mean? Off your nuts, gouging on heroin. Not that that's anything to be proud of, but like, yeah, that's possibly, do you know what I mean? Barely awake. So I'll be at a festival, but I'll be like off my nuts somewhere, like on a giant beanbag.
It's very emotive, right? I guess that's the power of music. I guess we've spoken a bit about mental health in the podcast and the power of music that takes you back, right? So any song can transport you to a place in your childhood, whether it's, you know, Irish music for you, take you back to your childhood, or something that you've only had last week, it will take you back to last week. It's very emotive, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, so we've got Lou Reed and the Velvet Underground, plus the Doors pre-headliners. So I'll let you have that one. I don't usually let collabs in this, but I'll let you do it, Mark, for a special episode. All right, one more act left to go in, your headliners. So this act gets to headline your fantasy festival and get to play for you for 2.5 hours. So Mark, who are you going to have then as your headliner for your fantasy festival?
Talk.
All right. I believe Talk have only ever been picked the once on this very podcast. So Talk, yeah, they've only been picked before once by Joe Adamar, and he had them play as his Midway Madness act. So first time they're headlining a fantasy festival. So Mark, why Talk your headliners?
I don't know, they made one album, like they made a few albums pre like Spirit of Eden. They were very sort of like poppy in there, like with Shame. And I think Spirit of Eden, even if you listen to it now, it's just, I can't think, it's the best album ever made. It's like there's not a bad track on it, but it's just like the music, the sounds, they go off. You know, you're there and you're thinking, what is happening? You know, I think I Believe in You is another song about heroin, but I think Wealth as well. It's just I've always, like, I just listened to that album all my life, almost like how I read, you know, when you read a book sometimes and that's the only book you think you should ever read. I think Spirit of Eden is the only album. Like if you like said to me Desert Island or anything like that, it would be Spirit of Eden. Do you know that album?
I think that Joe actually picked the album for his album as well. So I've listened to it a couple of times. I know I don't know it inside out. I know it sporadically, I would say.
Yeah, it's extraordinary.
Right.
But even if you think it was made in 1987, that's a million years ago. But you know, it's really melancholic. It's super melancholic. I mean, sometimes you think the music's going to stop. It gets that slow. And there's one track that goes quite fast, but generally it goes really slow. Yeah, Mark Hollis, he died a couple of years ago, or a year or two ago.
Yeah, very sad. Very sad. All right, Talk, your headliners. The Spirit of Eden's the album. Probably cleared him, Mark. That was the album that you always wanted played by an earlier question. So that was always going to be your album of choice at this fantasy festival.
Yeah, I think like, can the song be different though, that everyone sings together?
Yeah, so the song, I guess to bring it to the song, so Talk will finish at 11. They'll bring back out Lou Reed, The Doors, James Brown, Lee Scratch Perry, and Nina Simone. They'll get to look at you backstage and go, okay, Mark, what are we all going to play together? So they can play any song of your choice. It doesn't have to be by any of those acts. It could be any song that means something to you or just a song that you like. So what are you going to have them played in for your encore?
I Got Life, Nina Simone.
Okay, and why are you picking that song then, Mark? What does that represent to you?
I think if I remember rightly, it's actually two songs put together, if that's true. Let me check. I think she put two songs together. I'm almost certain she did. So they're two... it's the one where I got... Wait, let's have a look. She put two songs together. It's the one where I Ain't Got No Home, Ain't Got No Shoes, that one.
Yeah, you can have that. That's all good. All right, so I Got Life by Nina Simone. All right, let's...
Yes, so listen to this, right? Ain't Got No, I Got Life is a 1968 single by American singer-songwriter Nina Simone from her album Enough Said. It's a melody of two songs. The first one is Ain't Got No, and the second one is I Got Life from the musical Hair with the lyrics, combination. Went to number 2 in the UK. But I didn't, like, if you think about the bands that I didn't have, would be like The Clash, Crash, and like the punk lot. But so many others. There's about 1 million people you could choose, isn't it?
Exactly. I mean, that's
Dennis Brown. I went to Reggae Sunsplash in Crystal Palace 1 and 2, and there was like all sorts: Yellowman, Dennis Brown, Black Uhuru, King Sunny AD, and the African People. These were like concerts with like fucking so many good people in it. I did love them. They were like my best concerts. I went to the Free Nelson Mandela concert as well, which ended with Sade singing Why Can't We Live Together, Sting singing, what was this track? Peter Gabriel singing Biko, and it ended with Free Nelson Mandela by the Special AKA Band. Yeah, that was a really good concert as well. Like I said, some of those, when you talk about festivals, so we got a festival at the Bethlem. We're doing it in the grounds on June the 8th. But the opening night, we've got so many acts on. And sometimes when you're doing things with loads and loads of acts on in one go, that's so good as well.
All right, so I guess
I'm really looking forward to the Bethlem thing. It's going to be amazing.
Who's playing the festival on June the 8th? Let's give that a plug. Who's playing for you?
But we've got lots of the service users and the people from the hospital who are unbelievable. So loads of people in there with, writing their own lyrics. We got Finn, we got Barrington, we got Alima, Kim, Susanna. We got Negative Response. We got some other people as well. We got Nathan Saudi, Fat White Family, Warren from Meat Raffle. We got someone that I can't say because he'll get in trouble because he's supposed to be performing everywhere else, but he doesn't really tell it. He said,
he'll just turn up on the day.
Mark, please, yeah. He said, Mark, please don't. Can you just do it quietly so no one knows that I'm going to be there, because otherwise everyone's going to get the ump.
Fair shout. I look forward to seeing who that is. All right, let's lock your fantasy festival in. So we've got Melancholy and Madness taking place at Bethlem Mental Hospital. Opening act, we've got Nina Simone. Super Seconds, Lee Scratch Perry. Midway Madness, James Brown. Pre-headliners, we've got Lou Reed and the Velvet Underground, being joined by Jim Morrison and the Doors. Headline act, we've got Talk, and they're going to play The Spirit of Eden in full. And for your encore, all 5 of your acts are going to play I Got Life all together. Sounds really good to me, Mark. Are you happy to slot that one into our Fantastival vaults?
Yeah, it's quite interesting as well, like thinking of things off the cuff. Do you know what I mean? That's quite, I think we've all got in our heads like what we think, but I honestly didn't really think about it till we were just talking there.
Yeah, I mean, some people obviously plan for it. Some people do that off the cuff. I guess each to their own. I guess before we finish up in this one, obviously you got the Bethlem Festival that runs to July. I guess past that, Mark, what are your plans, I guess, for the rest of the year and beyond? I guess, what you got planned?
Well, I do like lots of different things. Like, so the Artist Taxi Driver, I keep going. So we've got a massive show coming up in Manchester, but we're waiting. So I'm doing it with a gallery called the Division of Labour, a guy called Nathaniel, but it's around the general election. So it'll be for 6 weeks. When they call the general election, you get 6 weeks of purdah.
Yeah.
So we're having an exhibition, a kind of like moving thing. It's in a gallery, it's in a space, but we might go on the road as well, going around following like politicians and that. But it's in Manchester, and it's called Manx Hate Tories.
Fair enough. What else beyond that, or is it too far?
Yeah, I don't know. I want to thinking about going and doing a residency abroad, just working out I really want to start traveling a bit more, start doing a bit more things abroad. I was over in just recently just for the Turkish elections. I was over in Kurdistan. They ended up about 10 miles from the Iraqi border. With that was really, really incredible. I want to go out and I've done residencies in all sorts of places. Brazil, in Tbilisi. I went to Bahia, Salvador in Brazil, and did a project for the carnival there. Tbilisi in Georgia, Beirut, did a project in Beirut. So I really like going and up in Jutland, Oban Road. I really like going around. I feel like I need to move. So I may have been here a bit too long without moving too much.
Watch your space. And all right, Mark, if people don't... I know you've got a very large social following. But if anyone's listening and doesn't follow you already, where do people go and find you, Mark? Where's the best place
you can
to check
go.
you out?
You can go on Twitter. You can put the artist taxi driver in. I think it's at Chunky Mark. You can go to YouTube, which is definitely at Chunky Mark. Instagram is like the artist taxi driver. It's on TikTok. It's on Facebook. Yeah, I try and post like in all of the social medias. Social media is like, I'm getting more, I suppose, getting more drawn to Instagram more, but I got like most people on Twitter or like X. But that guy's such a fucking idiot. I mean, it seems a bit dry now. But the thing is like, it's just keep making stuff, isn't it? Like, it's out there, people, like, when I'm teaching that, I always say to like my students and that, make something extraordinary. Your starting point should be, I'm going to make something that's going to absolutely blow people away, And the internet is like a massive, there's 8 billion people out there to show your stuff to. It's not like you got to go and like wait for a gallery or wait for a record company. You ain't got to wait for no one. You just get up. You got to make it yourself. Do you know what I mean? But you have to just not. You can't be working in series. You have to make something extraordinary. Don't think about like, I'm going to make a record about this, or it's going to be, this is the theme, or be invited to be in a show, or I'm going to paint on canvas. No, your starting point, if you're a creative person, I'm going to make something absolutely extraordinary. People are going to laugh. People are going to cry. And we all know, we've all been moved. We've all cried. We've all laughed. You know what I mean? Looking at creative things, listening to music, watching films, painting. We all know what it is. If you want to do it. Do you know what I mean? But that should be, like, for me anyway, I think that's, I'll leave you with that anyway.
All right, so that is it. You also get a pre-recorded outro for this one. So thank you for listening to the 164th episode of the Fantastival Podcast. And it's time for the push. Okay, if you've enjoyed this and don't already subscribe, you should do so on iTunes. Please subscribe. It really helps the podcast out. It helps people find the pod and it pushes it up algorithms. So subscribe and follow on iTunes if you don't already, or if you're listening to the streaming service that is Spotify, you can do lots on there to help your favourite podcast. You can give us a follow on Spotify. It's really important, just like it is to music artists, it's really important to podcasts. So give us a follow on Spotify. You can also rate the show as well. So if you're kind enough to do that, please go and rate the show. I think we are sitting on 48 5-star reviews. It'd be great to get well past 50, so please do that. And you can also comment on the episodes on Spotify as well, and thank you to people like Paul Hammond and to Kimbo who have done so in recent weeks, and to anyone else who has done it. That's much appreciated. And Mark is all over social media, so is the Fantastival Podcast to a certain extent. We are on Twitter, where we post mostly. You can find us there and follow us at Fantastival P if you don't already. You can also find the podcast on TikTok. We post once a week on Sunday mornings, where I like to go out into our local park and post about the pod. And if you're not on TikTok or Twitter and want to contact the pod, you can do so at fantastivalpodcast@outlook.com. Unfortunately, we don't play music on the pod, but I'll try and get some tracks from Mark, and I'll try and make a nice little playlist of the acts he spoke about and included in his fantasy festival, as that's always a good way to bring the fantasy festival element to life. So I really enjoyed talking to Mark in episode 164, right at the end when he's talking about, being creative and just really capturing kind of your feelings and your audience. I think that's such a valid point. So Mark, it was a pleasure to have you on the podcast. I'm really looking forward to seeing how Mark's exhibition goes. And like I said, give him a follow if you don't already on all his social platforms, and keep up to date with all the news in his world. So that was 164. The next Fantastival Podcast will follow next week with 165. So please make sure to join me. But until then, stay safe, my Fantastival friends. Please continue to spread the word. And that word is Fantastival. Thanks for listening.